Hello and good day. This is Corey from the BachScholar YouTube channel. Thank you for joining me. The topic at hand today is fingering. I'm going to discuss a rather controversial topic, and that is I don't think it's good to write in fingerings in the score. So should you or should you not write in fingerings to your score? That's what I'm going to talk about today. Before I get to more about the reasons for that, I just want to put the word out about a very good book here on fingering. It's called The Art of Piano Fingering by Rami Bar-Niv. Rami Bar-Niv is an Israeli pianist and piano teacher. I know him through social media, which is all. I'm not personal friends with him, but I think this is an excellent book. So you can get your copy if you click on the link below this video. I highly recommend this book on the topic of fingering. Now, of what I've read in here, I don't see that Mr. Bar-Niv has discussed this topic of whether to write in fingering or whether not to write in fingering. But I want to go over this topic and just really delve into the reasons why I don't think it's good to write in fingerings. Now, about 30 years ago, I read an article in a piano journal, and it was an interview with Rudolf Serkin, the great pianist Rudolf Serkin. I used to have some of his records when I was younger that I really liked. I used to really like Rudolf Serkin's piano playing. And one of the things that Rudolf Serkin said in this interview, I remember, was that he did not write in fingerings to the score. And I thought that was the weirdest thing, because I've always heard that it's best to write in fingerings. We've all heard that from teachers. Write in your fingerings, you'll remember them later. If you don't write them in, you won't remember them anymore. And I thought that when Serkin said he doesn't write in fingerings and he gave his reasons, I thought, well, this is really kind of strange. So I did an experiment. And what I did was I went a few months without writing in any fingerings to see what would happen. And this was probably about 25 to 30 years ago, as I said. And nothing happened. I was able to learn a lot of music, and it didn't impede me from learning music. I didn't write in any fingerings, and everything was fine. Then I went another year, everything was fine. Then I went another year, a couple of years went by, then, well, what do I know? Then 10 years went by, and I barely wrote in any fingerings at all. And now it's about 30 years later. I am approaching the age of 59 in a couple months, and now I'm at 59 years old, and I haven't written in any fingerings to any of my scores in probably 30 years. I don't know exactly, probably 25 to 30 years. I haven't even written in any fingerings, and it hasn't done. In fact, if anything, it's done good. And the reason why it's done good, I think, is because it's given me more time to learn music. Think about it. When you have to write in, I have my score of the Beethoven sonatas here that I was looking at. This is the Appassionata Sonata. It's the Kelmis edition, doesn't have fingerings. I wrote in all these fingerings when I was about 25 years old. Now, all meticulously wrote in all fingerings all over the place. I mean, the fingerings, it's just loaded with fingerings I wrote in when I was 25. And since then, I've taught the piece and I've worked on it, over the years. And I've discovered now at my later age, I'm actually playing many different fingerings than indicated here that I played when I was 25. So this is one thing that I've noticed over the years, that fingerings, the fingering preferences change over time. they actually change over time. Fingering is not an exact science. It's not like rhythm, where you can play a rhythm and either the rhythm is right or wrong. Or mathematics, 2 plus 2 is 4, 2 plus 2 is not 5. Well, fingering is not like that. There's no such thing as a correct fingering or, a wrong fingering. I mean, there's certain patterns that are better than others, and you could say I guess you could say for very basic beginners, yes, this fingering is wrong, this fingering is right. But when you're dealing with difficult piano music, there really is no right or wrong. It's about how it fits the hand and the fingers of the person who's playing the piece. So fingering is not an exact science. Fingering changes over time. Preferences change over time. Also, it takes too much time to write in fingering to the score. Think about it. If you write in all these fingerings that I wrote in here, that took a lot of time and a lot of figuring out. I had to write something in, try it out, figure it out, write something in, figure it out. If it's not right, then you have to erase it. Then you have to write in different fingers, then you try it out. Maybe a couple weeks later, if you think you have the perfect fingering written out, then let's say you play it 2 weeks later, you think, I don't like these fingers anymore. I want to change them. So you have to erase them, and you have to write in new fingerings. And then maybe a month later, you might play it again, and you might see over here, I don't like these fingers anymore. I like to play something else now, because you've worked on the piece now for a while, and you've sort of gravitated towards new fingerings. So what I'm trying to say is that it's virtually impossible to figure out the perfect fingerings, even for yourself, if you've only worked on the piece for a short amount of time. The longer you've worked on the piece, the more you will gravitate towards what are the best fingerings for you. It does take some intellectual work, but at the same time, you have to allow your muscle memory and your motor skills to also have a say in it. And so that's why I say that muscle memory should take precedence over just the actual physical act of writing in numbers to the music. Writing in a bunch of numbers into your music is no guarantee of anything. Writing in numbers to your music does not mean you will even play the piece well. Anyone can write in numbers to the music. So I found that with my experimenting with not writing in fingerings, I found that I freed myself up. I emancipated myself from having to be a slave to numbers on the score, and I can allow my mind to process it better and my muscle memory to take precedence. And then over time, if I relearn the piece, ultimately your muscle memory will always come back to what you first learned. Your muscle memory is much more reliable than writing numbers onto a score. So if I were to work on this today, the Appassionata Sonata, like I did when I was 25, I'm sure that probably 30%, I'm estimating about 30% of all the fingerings I wrote in here, I would play differently now. And that's perfectly okay, because like I said, we all change over time. So it is not true, absolutely not true, it's absolutely false when pianists say, write in the fingering, so if you come back to it 10 years from now, you'll have the right fingering. No, that's absolutely not true at all. Your muscle memory will remember it better than the act of simply looking at a bunch of numbers on a page. That's not going to help you. Numbers on a page will not help you. And I also found through experimenting with not writing in fingerings that it makes you remember them better. This is just a crutch. It's like a training wheel. So you have training wheels, and once you take the training wheels off, you can always ride the bicycle. Once you can ride the bicycle, you don't need training wheels anymore. That's why beginners need fingerings written in. If you've been playing a couple of years, you still need fingerings written in. You still need help from a teacher to help you determine the fingerings. But then once you're at a level that's relatively advanced, let's say you've played 6 or 7 years now, you're playing relatively advanced pieces, the time is ripe to stop writing in fingerings and to wean yourself off of that, because that's like training wheels on a bicycle. When a child learns to ride a bicycle with training wheels, he learns to balance, he or she learns to balance on the bicycle. Then when that's done, when the child can balance, you take the training wheels off and you can ride the bicycle. That's why I think it's really not good. It's really a joke when advanced pianists, like pianists who, concert level pianists, are writing in fingerings to their score. I just think that's so contradictory, because they're underestimating the ability of their brains to remember it, and they're underestimating the muscle memory that takes precedence over writing in numbers in the score. So these are my reasons why I don't write in fingerings anymore, and I haven't for about the past 25 or 30 years. Ever since I read that interview with Rudolf Serkin, I've totally changed my approach. It's freed me up from writing in fingerings, and the result is I've learned about 10 times more music than I could if I were a slave to writing in, a slave to having numbers on pages. Numbers don't do anything. Numbers don't help you play something well. Numbers are just numbers on a page, and they're ugly. So I know this is controversial. I know we're all taught to write in fingerings, but just try it. If you want to try, just try it out. If you're relatively advanced, once again, if you're a beginner or intermediate level, you still need to write in fingerings. Once you reach a certain level, then you need to wean yourself off of writing in fingerings. I guarantee, if you try this, give it a good try, like for a full year, I guarantee you'll like it much better than being a slave to writing in fingerings and writing, erase, write, erase, and sitting here trying to figure things out. That's no fun, because it takes away from the time you could spend on learning the music. That's my philosophy. So try it out if you're relatively advanced. If you're a beginner, I would still resort to writing in fingerings and have your teacher help you figure out good fingerings. So this is my little talk, my little philosophy for today. Thank you for joining me, and until we meet again.